Oh, there we go. Okay. We have the door open? Is it open? Okay. Oh, it's the right one. Okay. All right. We're ready, Russ? Okay. Meeting's called to order. Roll call. We have a roll call. Looks like we're missing Supervisor Romden has to be excused. Who else are we missing? Askey. Okay. All right. Motion to approve the October 2nd agenda that you have before you. Supervisor Poppy, second by Supervisor Augustine. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the September 11 minutes. Supervisor Augustine, second by Supervisor Lukes. Any discussion of those minutes? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Public comment. Anybody who wishes to speak to the committee? Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
You could do that. All right, I'm here to speak to the number 9 on your agenda. For the land information director position. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Brian Dax. I was on the county board about 10, 12 years ago or so, and sat on a lot of committees, of which one was the Land Information Council. And some of you may not know exactly what the Land Information Office does, but I can tell you that it's an extremely important process of the county operations. I cannot stress enough the validity of this position and how essential it is, and that it should not be taken lightly. I work for a title company in the real estate industry, and out of necessity, I need to work closely with Tammy and formerly Steve Hansen, who was the former land information director. And as you all know, the real estate business has been booming the last 5 to 10 years, and their knowledge of the county ordinances, mapping system, property ownership, and legal descriptions is second to none. I was concerned when Steve Hansen retired because he was our original land office director and wasn't sure that his knowledge and his expertise would be passed along. But I can tell you that it has been passed along. We live in a rural community, and property owners are continually splitting parcels, creating all kinds of questions and problems and survey issues. Steve and now Tammy have been an invaluable resource in helping us transfer and convey ownerships of these parcels. If everything in Kewaunee County were subdivisions and planned developments, it'd be simple, but it's not. I lean on Tammy often, and we have a great working relationship with her. And I am confident that we can always come to some sort of agreement to get all these issues resolved. We are the only title company in Kewaunee County, and people usually almost always come to us with issues and problems. And therefore we turn to Tammy for those solutions and eventually can get it all worked out. I support making her the land information director and look forward to a continual working relationship that benefits everyone involved. And it makes my job easier. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the committee? Anyone else who wishes to speak? All right. Administrators report. Ed.
Okay, I just handed out the report for the month. And as you can see, we've got quite a list going with vacancies. We did have a job change down at the promotion and rec department. So, and that was just handled internally. So, but under recruitment, we'll talk about the administrator position in closed session in a little while. And you can see the third one down, financial assistant, transportation coordinator, that was filled internally. So you also have on the agenda a little further down, filling a vacancy, economic support. That is the position that we would be looking to fill, where this internal candidate took the financial assistant transportation coordinator position. Working on the highway list, you can see we have 10 applicants that will close next week. Doing the internal posting for the investigator. Judicial assistant. So far, we've had 18 applicants for that. And we'll obviously leave that open. That's a special set of skills there that you'd be looking for. So we'll leave it open until we find somebody that can fill that spot. They've held second interviews. I'm sorry, they've scheduled second interviews for the radio op jailer. And then they're also looking at an eligibility list, which we've got 12 applicants that'll close on Thursday, the filing. Social worker, also filled by an internal transfer there. So that would pretty much cover the activity. Just an aside, you'll see a note on the bottom about Kristen. We filled a vacancy in the finance director's office. I don't know, maybe Paul wants to explain, but the person that took that position had an accident and will be out 4 to 5 weeks. So this person, Kristen, is going to end up having to fill in not only her regular duties as the accounting person, but also handle the payroll. But she's not going to be able to use her vacation that she's allotted in the time frame. So basically, she's asked us to extend the time that she can take that, and that's something that Paul and I agreed to. So just so you understand that, she's doing us a big favor and pulling a lot of weight in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So I think Nancy's got 2 weeks in.
Yeah, she had about 2 weeks in, and then she'll be off at least until mid-October. But then we're picking up where we left off with the training, maybe backtracking a little bit because it's been a few weeks. So even if she came back on the first day possible, mid-October, there would be a couple of weeks before we could be up and running again. So all that planning we did for to minimize our coverage, here we are anyway.
That's it.
That's it under the, I'm sorry.
That's it on personnel report, employee and employee assistance program. Nothing further?
I want to just say a few words about the EAP. Something we discussed at our last department head meeting, and in particular, Melissa from Human Services has held some exit interviews. And that was one of the things that was brought up, that they felt that an employee assistance program, and her department deals with a lot of issues that I think can have lasting effects on some of the employees. So it's something that I think we should look at. I'm not going to do that in my short term here. So, but I think it is something that you should keep in mind as you move forward to maybe see about contracting someone that could provide that kind of service. Melissa, I don't know if you have a comment you'd like to make or not. Okay.
Right. Thank you. Consider 2024 cost of living wage increases.
So last month, I think the request was made for the pay plan amount of 2.25. I said another 1% would be about 90,000, and the question given back to me was, what about 4%? So yes, we can do 4%. Would you like the long answer or the short answer?
Long one.
Long one? Okay.
Well, I would.
Okay, so if I look back, a number of things. First of all, if I look back, I do 5, actually, I think I have 6 years worth of history here. We've had 5 and 6 good years. Except for last year, we've kept relatively good pace with the cost of living. Last year, I should say 2023, this year being the exception, inflation was very high. If we also look at how the county has performed in those 5 to 6 to 7 years, we've always had good years with the exception of 1 or 2, few exceptions, and none of them have been horrible. Human Services, 2015 to 18 had ups and downs. The last few years have been, I guess saying they had good years would probably be an understatement. They've clawed themselves out of $1 million deficit without help from the general fund. Solid waste was issues. It's been closed. We've been operating that just fine. Sheriff's Department, in my time here, had 1 year where they had to request some additional funds, 1 out of 8. Roads and bridges is up and down, but that's mostly due to the snow. And as we budget for that now, we're okay. We have up years and down years. We budget for average. We're covered. The enterprise fund had some inventory issues, but that's not necessarily ongoing operating issues. When we looked and adjusted the pay plan, which became effective in 2020. So we started doing this in 2019, looking at information from 2019 and 2018. I said and looked at it then and said 4% was probably the maximum we could do for a cost of living adjustment. Since that time, we have not only maintained, we're actually in better position now than we were then. So I guess the short and long answer there is yes, we can do 4%. We could go higher if you wanted, but I would say that I would not. I would say that closely connected to that would not be an ongoing recommendation, a one-time thing. We could go up to 5%. But the same items that existed when we put the pay plan together exist today with better options. Our revenue for 2024 is going up quite a bit. We've got another, I just lost the amount here, 515,000 from an additional state shared revenue. Interest rates are back up to normal. Our health insurance financially has been a help to the budget. We actually are going to spend less on health insurance than we budgeted last year, even with the 6% increase. And that's because at enrollment time last year, the increase was held to 0. Plus that second part, the new part of it was how many employees would take the narrow plan, which had a lower cost. That was a complete unknown. And rather than guess and guess wrong, we stuck at the 0%. Well, we had about 25 to 27%, if I remember right, of employees that took the narrow plan. So that in combination with the 0% increase gave us a pretty decent reduction in our health insurance expense. So we are sitting in a spot where we could easily do a 4% increase, to answer your question.
The budget you gave us, the proposed budget had 2.25, correct?
Yes.
What's the committee want to recommend? You can either go 2.25 or somewhere in between up to 4, or I guess you go over Supervisor Poppy.
Did we not give the sheriff's traffic a 3%?
The sheriff's department received 3.
Okay, thank you.
The union employees got 3.
Yes, union employees got 3% in their contract. That is correct. Last year, what did we end up going with last year? 4. And that's plus the steps.
Right.
So whatever you do is in addition to the steps, or unless you make a motion, we've done that before, or I think that's been done before, but.
A question for Paul. What is the inflation rate for this year?
The rate that we've referenced previously was the WERC, Wisconsin Employment Relations Committee, or whatever the last one is for. That one was 6.78. And that was the amount calculated effective December 1st.
What are salaries go? What is the average increase in wages across the country though? We talked about this last year too, and we keep talking about inflation numbers, which are quite a bit different. As we know, everybody in private sector, or at least most people, are seeing a decline because wages increases are not keeping up with inflation.
A decline where?
We're seeing a decline in real income compared to prices. I mean, inflation is going up higher. So if you looked at it last year, the increase that we gave was, as I recall, was higher than what the average increase in wages was nationally.
I I personally wouldn't go on what it is nationally because we're not hiring nationally, we're hiring locally.
I,
And I think we need to look at locally and don't worry about what
well,
What
it's,
nationally is.
yeah, and that those numbers carry down locally. We're, 6.2% inflation. Okay, so everybody in the county, the average increase in wages this year is going to be 6.2%.
So one more thing, that was Wisconsin Employment Relations Committee. It's for Wisconsin, it's presumably for contracts that start each month, they calculate a number. I don't know what they look at number, that's the number if we want to apply or compare to that we're being consistent. Another one that came out by email last week from the Department of Revenue related to expenditure restraint programs, which the county doesn't have to deal with, but I happen to see it in there. They specifically reference the CPIU, which is put out nationally, and that's the standard one. That's the one, if I'm gonna go calculate cost of inflation for something, that's the one I'm gonna look at. And that was about 5.4%.
Supervisor Augustine,
I would be in favor of the 4%. I mean, if we look at our recruitment list every month, that list seems to be getting larger, and I think we need to do what we can to retain the employees we have. If Paul says he feels comfortable with that number, I would support that 4%.
I would second that.
is that a motion?
Yes. Well, if you're making a motion, I'll second it.
I'll make that motion to support 4% plus
4% plus steps.
steps, yes.
Second by Master. Further discussion?
That number is on the handout. I just have to find it. Here we go. 124 and a half FTEs on the plan. Those added over max are 68. So right about half.
Any other questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approve filling vacancies, economic support, human services. You have anything?
Melissa's gonna speak to this.
Thank you. Ed really did a nice job summarizing already in his report. So just to review, Janine Bowers, our economic support specialist, applied for and was offered the vacant transportation/fiscal position within our agency. And with Janine's transition, we're now left with a vacant economic support position. So I'm here to request permission to fill the vacant economic support position within Human Services.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Supervisor Poppy, second by Supervisor Kroll. Discussion. Supervisor Lukes.
Sure. So the economic support position, we have 3 economic support positions within Human Services. They work within a consortium with the state to assist people to connect to food share, Badger Care, any economic support related program that they might be eligible for.
All right, any other questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Employee reclassification, land information coordinator to land information director. Anything on that you need to explain on that, Ed?
I'm afraid so. One of the things I found as when I came on board is that I was also supposed to supervise the land information office, and that was new. In the course of that, in speaking with Tammy Malik, Tammy, I don't know if you want to raise your hand. Oh, there you are. Tammy is the only employee that we have in LIO right now. So we looked at where things are in the department. I believe it was back in 2021 when the committee had created the position of coordinator in that department. And since that time, the administrator had appointed himself as the land information officer. And seeing as how we don't have that going forward, and I will not be your land information officer. That's way far beyond where I want to be with this. But it's a position that when it was started off was supposed to be reviewed back in June of 22. It was not. Tammy has worked since that time and has really gained a full scope of knowledge of that department. And as you heard Mr. Dax say, has done a very good job working with the people that has to use that system. So it is my recommendation, because this is what she's doing right now, that we would make her the director of the Land Information Office. And because again, she's been doing that work and there are things coming forward. The other thing we have to keep in mind is that she is the only person in this county that understands our land records programs. So I asked Tammy to put together a few things for the committees to help understand some of that. So Tammy, if you don't mind going into that. The other thing, why are we talking about that tonight? We have budget coming up, and it's one of the things that, you know, there would be an impact. So we want to make sure that if board doesn't improve or approve this, that it would indeed be part of that budget.
What's the budget impact, Ed?
The budget impact would be about $10,000 wage increase.
We had, when we went through all of this, there was going to be that we were hiring some of the certain things out to
Rupert Milky, correct.
What's the name? Rupert
Rupert
Milky.
Milky.
Are we still doing that?
Well, we are, and originally what the plan was, is we had a gentleman who had been in place, Dave Flack, and Steve and him, they had built this whole system, what we have, the land records we have right now. And so Steve had him completely prepared. I was just supposed to be able to hand stuff off to him and be done with it. He quit before Steve retired. Our county surveyor quit right after Steve retired. We lost our main programmer with one of our software programs. We've had numerous turnover at our other software programs. So I've had to bridge the gap between all of this and keep all of this information flowing. And what happened when we got the new people in is they weren't trained. They came in at the 11th hour, and they are GIS people. However, they're not land information people. They do this for no one else. This consulting they were doing, they didn't have a clue what they were getting into, nor did I. So through a series of events and having to really work through all of this, it came to, they decided, they're like, we work for you. We're contracted with you. So everything comes through me. If there's a project request, if there's a data request and the state directives, everything comes through me. I evaluate it. I assign it to Heather. I have to send it on. I get it back and I sign off on everything. So every bit of information, that's what this chart that I put together is about. That is all the information that flows in and out of my office. That's what I'm responsible for. And the same thing with Bay Lake Regional helping us doing some of the mapping. She doesn't take on just mapping. She waits for me. I assemble everything, get it to her, and I have to sign off on it. So basically, you know, what we thought would be, I could just hand this stuff off. It hasn't been that way. I've had to learn how to speak the language actually, because wasn't what I did. I was the real property lister, but I've had to learn the basic GIS principles. I have to understand the requests so I can move them on. I had to learn how to read data schemas. I had to learn how to be able to format the data too, so I could get it to the end user. So every process, every step of the way is about managing someone else, whether they're in-house or out, you know, as a contractor, I have to manage all of the data that comes through. So again, that's why we tapped into Bay Lake Regional Planning, because we also lost our in-house mapper. So we had to reset again, find somebody else, build that team member up again, get her trained. So with that, I think we'll see, the plan is to have Bay Lake be a bigger footprint in the GIS mapping, and we can have Rupert Milky just go back to consulting and taking care of our technical services. And then I'm doing, along with all of keeping this all running and making sure everything is met on time. I also worked with our GIS consultant, and we have created an open data portal. And this was one of my goals coming into this, because I want an more friendly end user product where people can just go in. We have one-stop shopping, so we don't need to send all this to Rupert and Milky to have them fulfill the request, whatever. So we're trying to get all this data accessible to people. We have our LiDAR data coming, which is going to totally change our GIS map. And then next year we have to, as Michelle knows, we are getting all new tax calculating and property assessment software, which has to be trained with all of the clerks, the municipal clerks, us, land and water. We also, and a big part of this too was also with the land information position, we have to fill that land information office. That is statutorily required in order for us to get the $100,000 in grants. We get them a year to offset the costs of the office. That's not even the projects. That's just covering office costs. Somebody has to get the projects when that's, necessary. We have to set up projects. Somebody has to follow all the projects. We have to get vendors. We have to get contracts. Then we have to write grants for the money. We have to follow up on that. We have to close out the grants. We have to have a council meeting. That's how all the money is determined where it goes. And from there, we have to make sure that we send that information back to the DOA so that they know that we've done what we're supposed to do. That's how we continue to get $100,000 in grants a year. Somebody has to do that work.
Is there a motion? Oh,
One of the things I wanted to point out is that you mentioned Rickard and Melky. We have always contracted with Rickard and Melky right from the very first day.
right. Well,
And when that was even when Steve was here.
that changed though, when we reclassified all of this in 21.
But what Tammy has done is she's moved Bay Lakes into this
Right.
at a lower rate of cost. So that's another piece of that.
So is there a motion to move the land information coordinator to land information director? Supervisor Kroll, is there a second? Supervisor Poppy, is there further discussion on this? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you. I would need a motion then to move into closed session. Supervisor Augustine, second by Supervisor Lukes. All in favor of the motion to move into closed session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.